He had everything a man could dream of: wealth, status, power, and respect. Yet every Christmas Eve, as snow blanketed the city and laughter echoed from every home, David Lawson sat alone in his vast mansion. The CEO of one of the biggest tech companies in the country, he was admired by many and loved by none. His employees whispered about how he never took holidays, never hosted parties, never smiled when December came around. Because Christmas wasn't a season of joy for David, it was a season of memory and pain. 10 years earlier, on a night just like this, he had lost his wife and their little girl in a car accident. They were on their way to surprise him at his office, bringing him homemade cookies, when the icy road took everything away. Since then, David had sworn off Christmas. No lights, no decorations, no gifts, just work, silence, and guilt. That evening, as the snowstorm raged outside, David sat by the fire with a glass of whiskey in his hand. The city skyline glowed in the distance, and he stared at it blankly, feeling the same emptiness he did every year. Suddenly, a faint knock echoed through the mansion. He frowned. Who would visit him on Christmas Eve? He ignored it at first, thinking it was the wind or a branch brushing against the door. But the knocking came again, soft, hesitant, yet persistent. With a sigh, he rose, buttoned his robe, and walked to the door. When he opened it, he saw a young woman drenched from the snow, holding the hand of a little girl wrapped in an oversized pink scarf. "Sir, I'm so sorry to bother you," the woman began, her voice trembling from the cold. "Our car broke down a few miles back and my phone died. We've been walking, and this was the first house with lights on." David looked at them, his instincts torn between annoyance and pity. The child's small face peeked from behind her mother's coat, her cheeks flushed red from the wind. "Please," the woman added softly. "We just need to warm up for a while." Without a word, he stepped aside and gestured for them to come in. The warmth of the mansion hit them immediately. The little girl gasped at the tall ceilings and grand staircase, her eyes wide with wonder. David led them to the living room and handed them blankets from the couch. "Thank you," the woman said, rubbing her hands together. "I'm Anna. This is my daughter, Lily." David nodded, offering a polite smile. "David Lawson." Anna's eyes widened slightly. "The David Lawson? Lawson Technologies." He sighed. "Yes, that one." She smiled faintly. "Well, it's not every day you get rescued by a billionaire." David chuckled dryly, though something about her warmth felt unfamiliar, uncomfortable even. He poured them hot tea and sat across the room, watching as Lily wandered curiously around. The little girl pointed at the massive fireplace and asked, "Mister, why don't you have a Christmas tree?" David froze. For a moment he couldn't find his voice. "I don't celebrate Christmas," he said finally. Lily tilted her head, confused. "But everyone celebrates Christmas." "Not everyone," he replied softly. Anna shot her daughter a gentle look, but David waved it off. "It's fine," he said. "She's right to ask. It's just a long story." Lily nodded solemnly, as if understanding more than she should for her age. Then, to David's surprise, she reached into her small backpack and pulled out a tiny, glitter-covered ornament shaped like a heart. "You can have this," she said. "It's from our tree. Maybe it'll make you feel better." For the first time in years, David felt something stir in his chest. He took the ornament carefully, as though it were made of glass. "Thank you, Lily," he whispered. Anna smiled, watching the exchange. They spent the next hour talking. She told him she worked 2 jobs to support Lily after her husband passed away in the army. Life had been hard, but she never complained. She said Christmas was their favorite time of year because it reminded them that kindness still existed. David listened quietly, something softening inside him with every word. When the clock struck midnight, snow still fell heavily outside, trapping them for the night. He offered them a guest room, and despite her hesitation, Anna accepted. As he walked past the guest room later, he heard Lily's sleepy voice say, "Mommy, I think he's sad. Maybe Santa can help him too." David smiled sadly and returned to his empty bedroom. For the first time in years, he didn't feel completely alone. The next morning, the storm had cleared. The sunlight reflected off the snow, painting the world in gold and white. David came downstairs to find Lily in the kitchen, humming and trying to make pancakes. The counter was a mess of flour and sugar, and Anna stood beside her laughing. "I hope you don't mind," Anna said. "She wanted to make breakfast for you." He shook his head. Mind? I can't remember the last time anyone cooked in this house. Lily handed him a plate, her face glowing with pride. Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawson? He hesitated, then smiled genuinely for the first time in a decade. Merry Christmas, Lily. That day, something changed. David found himself laughing again, helping Lily decorate the fireplace with makeshift garlands and listening to Anna talk about life beyond boardrooms and stock prices. For the first time, he realized how long he'd been running from his own memories. When evening came and it was time for them to leave, David felt a surprising pang of sadness. He walked them to the repaired car and handed Anna his business card. If you ever need anything, I mean it, anything, Anna smiled. Thank you, Mr. Lawson, for letting us in. Lily waved. Don't forget to put up a tree next year. He laughed. I won't. As their car disappeared down the snowy road, David looked at the little heart ornament still hanging on his fireplace. For the first time since losing his family, the house didn't feel empty. A year later, on Christmas Eve, David stood outside the same mansion, but this time, it was glowing with lights. A tall Christmas tree sparkled in the living room window, and at his side stood Anna and Lily, smiling as they handed out gifts to children from a local shelter. When Lily tugged at his sleeve and whispered, "See, I told you Santa would help," David chuckled and knelt beside her. Maybe he did, he said softly. But I think his helpers had something to do with it too. That Christmas, the lonely CEO who once sat in silence finally found his family again, not by blood, but by grace, kindness, and a knock at the door that changed everything.